self. I am more than my physical body. Because I am more than physical matter, I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world. I deeply desire to expand, to experience, to know, to understand, to control, to use such greater energies and energy systems as may be beneficial and constructive to me and to those who follow me. I deeply desire the help and cooperation, the assistance, the understanding of those individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience are equal to or greater than my own. I ask their guidance and protection from any influence or any source that might provide me with less than my stated desires.
Do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. Do not claim to know the ultimate truth about fire. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. I'm the void.
Let's go. Salvador, Dan, Ava, another. I don't want to repeat your names, right? Sir Wolf, Grant Gets Out, New England Dirt Roadie, Gypsy Jenny, Sudi. What's up, y'all? And all the lurkers out there in radio world and digital radio world. You know, the thing with the Fringe FM, people ask me, they're like, are you on terrestrial radio? So yeah, we've been on terrestrial radio and it doesn't last. For one, either the program directors can't get their stuff together or we say things that we're still not allowed to say. However, I think those laws are changing. So if you've got like a local radio station that you listen to, we'll be glad to throw the show up on there. It's just, I don't know. I mean, I know in England, radio is still pretty awesome, but they're doing it right. Like over here, it seems to be dying. And if you flip on the radio, there's no Art Bell, and there's the Coast to Snost, right? It doesn't sound the same. And then there's political talk most of the time. So it's pretty boring. Late night radio is supposed to be compelling, right? It's supposed to be like intriguing or something. Anyways, that's just my 2 cents about it. I personally, in my heart, I hope radio never dies. I would love to go back to the 20s and just stay up all night and listen to radio. Matter of fact, some of you know me personally, that few of you know me personally. Like when I sleep, I turn on old radio programs. I put some on the Fringe FM too, but like I'll listen to old stuff like Art Bell, Phil Hendry, like a bunch of the old radio greats. It brings me comfort for some reason. So I don't know. It's hard to explain. I guess it's sad to me that radio itself could be dying, but when I look at the marketing stuff, it doesn't look like it's dying, right? Doing it right all through the night, Sudi says. Hell yeah. Well, the good news is the Internet Archive is back up, but so we might get into a little bit of Monroe tapes tonight, talk about that stuff. If you got an experience you want to call in and talk about, especially when it comes to NDEs, the occult, or the out-of-body experience, you can call and interrupt the show at any point in time. Just understand that most of us have ADD and you got to try to get to the point, right? We've had some really great calls. Jesse and Corey's called in. I think everybody that I've seen in chat for the most part is called. I'm still waiting on Word Salad to call in about the Dream Police. Does anybody know anything about that? The Dream Police? Is that like a thing? Or is that a myth? Because if there's police in the dream world, I want to meet them. Naturally, I rebel against the police. I always have. I think it's because secretly I always wanted to be a detective for some reason. So last night we were talking about weird kind of stuff that doesn't really seem to matter, but it is interesting, like clothing in the astral realm. Why does everybody seem to be clothed? Now, here's the one thing, though. Remember, Robert Monroe did run into some naked people in the astral realm, but for the most part, people are clothed. And if they're not clothed in something that they would normally wear, they're usually covered in some kind of white garment. And why is that? So, Vuldoon, remember, we're into this book from 1928. I would have loved to live back in 1928. No cell phones, regular radio, old school phones. You listening to stuff like Orson Welles. I think that was in the 30s, though, but you know what I mean. And conversations were probably way more interesting than they are now, just because people didn't have all that tech that we have now. I swear to God, I just heard someone knocking on the door. Isn't that weird? No one's going to knock on this door this late at night. It's too dark up here. No one would walk up here to the shack. I might check the door here in a minute. No one would walk up to the shack this late at night because there's no lights. You can see like a little bitty light coming out of the window. And most people that don't admit it are creeped out by that much darkness. So I don't think they would walk up here. Anyways, maybe it was a raccoon or something. Who knows? So he says, Vuldoon goes on to say, now I remember several instances in which I'd been dressed in the astral when only a moment out of coincidence. My mother has seen me on several occasions while I was out of body. And a few times I've been conscious at the same time and I saw her. And at the moment she saw me, we saw each other at the same time. So at other times she's seen me prowling about the house in the dead of the night when I've been quite unaware of the fact or unconscious in my astral body. We call that astral sleepwalking around here. What's up, MJ? Did I say what's up to Sir Wolf? I think I did. So she always described the clothing I had on at the time. And although, as I have said before, the phantom is usually garbed in raiment which duplicates that which the physical is wearing. But she did not know on many occasions which suit of pajamas I had on. And she verified her impressions afterwards, and I could never begin to tell of all the experiences and experiments of this nature which have taken place within my own home, most of them occurring when no prearrangements had been made by myself. In other words, on most of the occasions when I was, quote, seen, they were unintentional astral projections, which eliminates all possibility of hallucination induced through expectancy and suggestion. Some contend that nude spirits do not exist, but this is a folly too. Spirits dress according to custom and to the customs of the geographical locations in which they've lived. We have nude and scantily clothed races here on the earth plane, so we also have them on the astral plane. Do we? Is that a real thing? You're a man out of time, Joe. Yeah, maybe. Where's the nude and scantily clothed places on the earth? Well, I got to go there. And I'm not talking about like the jungle, or whatever. So as to the clothing of the phantom, one writer has said, quote, where did Christ get his clothing when he appeared after his death? That's a good question. The account distinctly says that the soldiers divided his raiments among them by casting lots. And incidentally, my own observations in this matter of the phantom's attire coincide in part with what Caroline D. Larson has to say on this same subject in her book, My Travels in the Spirit World. And she says this, quote, as the astral body is an exact copy of the physical, so men and women remain men and women in the spirit world. All their characteristics and the peculiar masculine and feminine qualities remain unchanged. Spirits, like humans, wear garments. The appearance of clothes is affected in the following manner. From every spirit emanates a strong aura, a pseudo-phosphoric light, and this aura is completely controlled by the mind. Out of this substance is molded the vesture of the body. At first, right after death, the molding in most cases is an unconscious act, for no sooner is a spirit separated from the physical body than it is in some manner dressed, even though the garment be only a sort of a shroud. That's strange, a little strange. But as the mind gains control of itself, the act of dressing becomes a conscious act, and the fashion of the wearing apparel is largely governed by the individual's taste. See, isn't that cool? So, like, if we go in the astral, we don't even have to worry about style, I guess. We could just dress ourselves however we want. Nobody cares about this, by the way. I don't know why he's talking about it. So, just after death, he says, when the mind is still completely... Do you guys care about this? Like, I don't, but it's a small segment, so I'm going through it. So, when the mind is completely dominated by earthly ideas and habits, the spirits generally affect the fashions of the clothes which were worn previous to passing. So, the first thing to catch my eye and my first wandering in the astral was the strange spectacle of spirits who appeared as mortals in earthly raiment walking everywhere. In the spirit world, the color of the aura defines the quality of the spirit. All darker colors denote a low state of development. Now, why is that? Because I'd love to wear black. Black and red, black and red. But if I wear black and red in the spirit world, I'm at a low state of development. As the spirit progresses upward, the colors of the aura become continually brighter. These aura colors, of course, determine also the color of the spirit garment, and hence the character quality and development of the spirit are denoted by the color of the garment. Wow. What was that book that he just referenced? Let me see if I can go back and find it. It's called My Travels in the Spirit World by Caroline D. Larson, Larsen. Well, the only thing that I would think that matters in this thing is like I would wear whatever I wanted, kind of like they do in the Matrix when they clothe themselves. That would be cool, but as far as anything else goes, who cares, right? I don't care. I mean, at that point, everybody's dead. So why isn't everybody just naked? Like, who cares, All right. So as a man thinketh, and this reminds me of another point Vuldoon goes on to say, perhaps the most difficult of all to comprehend concerning the phenomena of astral projection, it is that everything in the astral plane seems to be governed by thought, by the mind of the projector. As a man thinketh, so he is. So when I think of trying to convey just what this implies, I almost give up in despair and realize how insignificant is my ability to express myself. So I can only say again, as one is in his mind, he becomes in reality when he is in the astral body. So if you ever learn to project consciously, you will be amazed at the response which follows your thoughts. You will see that half the time you cannot think fast enough. That's true. I suppose that after one has lived on the astral plane for a time, he overcomes this. Most of the time, however, even before you can complete a thought, you have already attained what you're thinking about. And speaking of her own experiences when out of the body, Cora L.V. Richmond has said, quote, I become more and more aware that the whole of me, released from the fetters of the bodily senses, could perceive and receive perfectly the answer to every question, even before its complete formulation in thought. Well, that makes for a hell of a lot of chaos, doesn't it? If everything happens faster than you can complete a thought. Needs to be some training going on there, right? It seems almost unbelievable, but the subconscious will can bring about the result before the conscious thought is even completed. And you may think of going to a friend's home, and before you have even completed that thought, you're there. The subconscious will naturally gets the best of the projector much of the time, but the more one projects, the more you do it, which also means the longer you remain in the astral, the more your conscious will becomes its own master again. One could move along a street in the astral body and think, what's going on inside that house? And instantly one finds himself inside, or one may merely see inside, or one can go inside willfully. That is how uncertain everything is on the astral plane. You can never tell what's going to happen. So be careful with your thoughts. Like, if you were an astral projector, wouldn't you be afraid that you're going to freak somebody out? Like, that's what I think. I don't normally, like, when I get out, I don't see people. And if I do, it's usually at a long distance. But I'm out in the country, right? Like, wouldn't you worry that if I go into that house, they're going to see me and I'm going to freak them out? I don't want to freak people out. They're going to think you're the devil or a demon or some kind of thing, you know. Marvelous as the astral may seem, it is another sense in a condition of muddlement. That is why no two have the same experience. For the very things which are true on one occasion and one particular condition of mind would be entirely different on another occasion when in a different mental state. It seems that the mind creates its own environment, yet the environment is very real. This condition could not possibly last indefinitely. It is a sort of purgatory where one must learn to think correctly. You could no more get out of this condition by incorrect thinking than you could buy your way out with money. For your wrong thoughts create their own environment, and this place we are speaking of, and I have loosely termed it the astral plane, is here upon the earth. It's in the earth's atmosphere. And perhaps you think there is no significance in what is commonly called purgatory, but that term seems very fitting for the lower astral condition. So far as higher astral conditions are concerned, I know nothing of them. This is why I like Vuldoon, because I'm the same way, man. I don't know anything about, like, when people say I went to the 9th and 10th dimension, or I went to this super high spiritual plane. That has not been my experience whatsoever. Great premature conceptualism. Yeah, that makes things a lot more complicated, doesn't it? A few mediums have claimed to have projected into various planes and subplanes of the astral world and give specific information concerning each of these planes and subplanes. But I've never had a conscious projection when I was not upon earth, as much so as I am in the flesh, yet intangible to all earthly things. Now, some tell me that I'm not developed enough. That's what everybody says. Maybe you're just not ready, or you're not developed enough. I hear that too all the time. Some tell me that I'm not developed enough, that if I were, I should not be in such a condition when projected. To hear some mediums talk, one would think that they were so perfect that at death they would at once awaken on the 20th plane. And I'm afraid many of them are sadly mistaken. No one, I repeat this too, I'm repeating this, no one understands the astral world. No one can understand it. It is too complicated. What holds true on one occasion is anything but true on another. The astral world is a subject for speculation, for argument, and many different theories concerning it have been advanced by different cults. A general belief is that the astral plane is composed of 7 planes and 7 subplanes. I make no apology for admitting that I know nothing whatever about the truth of this 7-fold scale of planes which are said to represent the one astral plane. Many projectors assert that guides show them and explain all these things to them, but these guides must have no liking for me because I've never yet seen one of them. But yeah, another thing though too, Vuldoon, he's never, touched anything physical in the astral either, so maybe he does have some blocks. Who knows? In every conscious out-of-body experience I have ever had, I've never seen anyone but earthly things. I've always seen earthly things. I've seen astral phantoms among the earth, but none whom I would choose for a guide. I have been told that one must be highly developed in order to get out of the earth's atmosphere, and perhaps that is why I do not see the marvelous things others tell about while projected. At any rate, I have always projected in the Earth's atmosphere, and I believe that practically everyone will awaken in the astral, in the Earth's atmosphere, which I call purgatory. Now, what takes place beyond this purgatory, I do not know. However, there are several books on the market by projectors who claim to have penetrated into the higher realms, and there are also countless volumes treating of life after death, which any interested reader can procure. There's one thing I do know, however, which is that in the Earth's atmosphere and this purgatory of the dead are the astral entities who haunt the earthly. That is, there are many phantoms of the dead living on the earth plane, but they are intangible to physical things. Modern spiritualism holds that the spirit merely sojourns in the astral and that it will continue to progress ever onward into higher and higher realms. There is another school which maintains that the astral world exists, but that these phantoms of the dead are merely waiting in the astral to be reincarnated, to dwell in the flesh again. Catholicism through the ages has held to the doctrine of purgatory, and in this respect the Catholic Church approaches the teachings of spiritualism more nearly than any other religion. Purgatory, in either case, being but a temporary intermediary state wherein the spirit of the dead are prepared for a more permanent life. Curiously enough, both Catholics and spiritualists maintain that souls can be helped in this purgatorial existence by the prayers of the living. In the purgatory of the dead, the mind of the phantom regulates its condition of being. Its habits and desires hold in their grip, and the phantom must learn to think correctly, for a man's thoughts govern him. Maybe when people talk, anytime people talk about purgatory, that could be like what they're referencing, because they just didn't know that like the astral plane was a real thing or something. Corey says, I think the astral should be considered the same way a work of art. It's subjective. You filter through your ego, even when people say they have ego death. It's like you still have an internal monologue. You're filtering it through an ego if you have the internal monologue, which means it's subjective. Yeah, like I hear about the ego death kind of thing all the time, but if I'm coming to understand what the ego means specifically, there's a few different definitions of it. And I'm not so sure that you want an ego death. You want balance is what you want. Unless you just want to dissipate into the nothing, The nothing. It is thought which sustains the astral body. Do you think that the astral phantom walks upon the floor of a house because the floor holds him up? That sounds like Morpheus, doesn't it? Do you think that's air you're breathing in here? No, never that. He is independent of the floor. He does not make contact with the floor at all, yet he can walk upon it. Why? Merely because his thought sustains him. That could be the whole, riddle breaker to the whole walking on water thing, when Christ is walking on the water. He has always walked upon floors in the physical, and through force of habit thus learned in the physical, the habit rooted in the subconscious mind, he is sustained. The habit of walking upon a floor permits a phantom to do that in the astral, and it holds him on the line of the floor. So the desire to walk upon an upper floor could sustain the phantom and allow him to do that. The subconscious will regulates the weight of the astral body, causing it to rise, to fall, or to remain at any given elevation. The conscious will can do the very same thing also. Now, all this can never be explained by mortal minds, how thought creates or makes reality in the astral world. But imagine walking upon the floor of a house as if the floor sustained you, and yet not making contact with the floor. You would naturally suppose this would be a strange sensation, but it is not. In fact, it is unnoticed by the phantom, but if one begins to think about it, as I have, many times down through the floor one goes. Why? Merely because the projector thinks that the floor, not making contact with him, cannot sustain him. This is kind of why I think you hear a lot of people talking about when they're astral projecting, like they fall to the floor or whatever, too. Because there's something in their mind telling them, oh, I'm a spirit being, so the floor's not going to hold me. And then they go right through it. So as one goes along unconsciously walking in this manner, because the subconscious will through habit actually holds the body in its position, you do not think of walking in the physical when you walk, do you? And neither do you in the astral. It's just a habit. In other words, it's a subconscious expression. Similarly, when you walk upstairs and downstairs in your astral body, you're not aware that you're not actually stepping on the stairs. But think of it, and down you go. All this has a striking resemblance to the Bible story in which Christ walked upon the water. I just said that. So his thought sustained him, but when Peter, who stopped to think about it, tried to do so, and then down he went. There is not the slightest doubt that Christ could do this. He could do it in the physical body by levitation. He could do it in the astral body naturally, merely by thinking he could. And his thought sustained him, as thought will sustain each and every one of us when we depart from our physical anchors. Now, one more case to illustrate how erratically the mind can function in the astral. And as a rule, in our earthly life, we dodge automobiles. At least we try to dodge them. I almost got ran over today, man. I was walking down the road, and I kind of move at a snail's pace sometimes. And I walk with a 6-iron because, like I said, there's a pit bull down here that I have to, in case it comes at me, I want to be able to, you know. And this truck, like I'm on the other side of the road, and this truck starts coming at me. So it's coming at me. It's veering. I don't know if he's texting or what, but he just keeps veering. So I keep walking off the road, right? Like a little further. And he just keeps coming. And I'm like, damn, man, this guy's going to run me over. So I started waving the freaking 6-iron. I think he saw me. I think he was texting and driving or something. I mean, you never know, man. So one more case to illustrate, how radically the mind can function in the astral. And as a rule in our earthly life, we dodge automobiles. So we try to dodge them when we cross the street. So it's become a habit with us to look before crossing a street and wait for approaching vehicles to pass. Now, I remember one occasion when I was projected in the astral body and walked down the street. And I was about to cross to the other side, but stopped to see if a car might be coming. At the same time, I knew positively that cars could not harm me, but would pass right through me. But it was a force of habit. Yet again, on other occasions, I have never stopped to see if cars might be coming, which would run over me should I cross the street. So similarly, one will dodge other persons at times. One may be walking along the street, and on meeting someone in the flesh will dodge them unconsciously. On the other hand, one will at times pass right through people, never thinking of colliding with them. All of which goes to show that in the astral, what happens on one occasion may not happen on the next. It all depends upon the dominating thought in the mind, conscious or unconscious. Speaking of passing through earthly beings, this is a thrill indeed when one does it for the first time. Never done that. That's something I do want to do, but I haven't done that. I don't want to do it because I feel like it's like that movie Ghost, right? So if you get in the astral realm, would you want to pass through an earthly being? Like, there's a weird energy thing there. Unless someone's like, that I know is like, hey, pass through me. Then I'd be like, okay, you ready? And then I would probably do it. But I personally don't want to just pass through earthly people. I feel like I'm invading their privacy in some kind of way. Dodge people, right lane all the time. Yeah. Yeah. What's up, Jenny? So speaking of passing through earthly beings, he said, this is a thrill indeed when one does it for the first time. It's been said that when this occurs, the earthly being feels a chill. And I do not know whether this is true or not, but I doubt it. The astral being feels nothing at such a time, yet it is a real thrill to pass through beings' material. There are no words to express the feeling of prodigiousness. That's what he calls it, which overwhelms the projector when he becomes perfectly conscious in the purgatory of the dead. He'll see earthbound phantoms, and they're riding upon the air, and it sustains himself by thought, passes through material beings and objects which offer no more resistance than the air itself, and then listens to the chatter of those who suspect not his presence. And by chatter, it seems to, for when one is in such a state with the miraculous all about him, how trivial seems the commonplace subjects of everyday discussion. See, that's probably what I was hearing as all that talking when I was in the hypnagogic state. Social anxiety is real. Yeah. I don't think I have social anxiety, honestly. I know it's real, but I know some people have it. I don't know what that word means. But I don't think I have it. I get really extroverted, and then I don't want to be around anybody. It's weird. Like I'll get really extroverted and then I'll get my fill and then I don't want to be around anybody for a little while. It's really weird. Anyways, and yet for all the marvelous things upon the astral plane, it does feel good to get back into the physical body again and touch things. Touch. Like actually touch. If one could only feel things in purgatory, that is the hell of it, actually. Speaking seriously, it is a wonder to me that some of the case-hardened, earthbound phantoms under a super stress of habit or desire to make touchable contact do not go insane. There is but one cure for this condition, and that is to turn away from the earthly, to break the stress of the habit and desire to make contact with the earthly. Ooh, think about that for a minute, though. So you remember when he said that he tried to make physical contact with things, like touch things or whatever, and he couldn't do it, and it was driving him crazy. So think about we're used to touching stuff all the time. If we want to touch something, we just touch it, right? But if you're in the astral plane long enough and you don't get to touch anything, no matter how good something looks, you don't get to touch, taste, feel, nothing. And if you're a person that's like I hope that doesn't mess up the stream. If you're a person that's like has a lot of earth element in your chart, I would guess if you're more of an earthly person anyways, that's probably going to drive you crazy after a while, wouldn't you think? Like I really want to touch this thing, this plant, this tree, this person, or taste this food, or give somebody a kiss, a hug, or whatever. You can't do it. Think about that. After a while, it'd be kind of funny, almost like if you were floating in gravity, just something to laugh at, or floating in no gravity. But sooner or later, it's going to start to piss you off. It's going to start to torture you because you want that grounded feeling, and you're used to being grounded. You're used to the physical, you know. I can imagine that it would be a little bit torturous at times. Probably, if you're there long enough. Yeah, if you're trying to drop links in the chat, I don't know why. I'll have to check the settings or something. I think it blocks links from dropping in the live chat for some reason. I don't know why. I'll have to check on that later. Maybe drop, if you guys want to join the Discord, maybe drop the links in the main chat or something in the Discord. Okay. Man, if you could only feel things in purgatory, that is the hell of it, speaking seriously. So that's a hell to him. Earthbound phantoms are not as numerous as one might suppose, and one of the greatest possible mistakes is to believe that the instant one is outside his body, he sees thousands of spirits all the time. This is not the case, for although there are some, they are not numerous, and usually one never sees a spirit during projection anyways. And usually he finds himself alone, a stranger in a strange land, and yet a familiar land. It is said that on the streets of large cities, hundreds of astral phantoms mingle with the flesh and blood beings. Now, some will tell you that you can see vast distances when projected and conscious in the astral body, but this, like everything else, is not always true. In fact, one can scarcely answer one single question concerning the astral plane without saying, quote, sometimes this is true, sometimes it's not. One might project and encounter one condition, interiorize into the body again, and think he knew all about the astral realm, yet he would know only about that particular condition which he experienced. And because of these innumerable conditions, many stories concerning the astral world are contradictory. What one medium sees and hears and tells us, another one will reject because he has found a different condition. And this is also true of spirits. The mind of one spirit will be at a variance with that of another. While upon the subject of earthbound phantoms, permit me to quote another experience I once had. I could quote experiences enough to fill another book, but I've tried to give only those which shed light upon the different aspects of the phenomenon. So I might entitle this one, An Encounter with an Astral Fiend. What the hell is an astral fiend? This is why, I think he's right about this, because the only person that I've ever heard talk about how crazy this place can be and how random it can be is Robert Monroe when he talks about the different levels of consciousness. And that's the only parallel that he made parallels with different conscious states. But trying to define everything seems to be, this doesn't seem to work. Also, William Buhlman talking about this, how your thoughts, your beliefs, your addictions, everything that you take into the astral realm is going to affect your experience. And then you're going into a realm with everyone else's thoughts, beliefs, and all this other stuff. It can get pretty wonky sometimes. And I know we all want to meet up in the astral and party and hang out and stuff, but that's going to take some considerable focus. Not just, in my opinion, not just, hey, I want to go see this person. Because I've tried that. And sometimes it works. Most of the time it don't. But it's, hey, I want to go see this person in this condition, in these parameters, right? It's almost like how AI does a prompt. You might be able to do that in the astral. And if all of you had the same prompt, maybe we could go to the same place and do the same things. Or maybe I'm full of shit. I don't know. But I think he's right. It's pretty random sometimes. Anyways, An Encounter with an Astral Fiend. In 1923, a man living in my hometown died of cancer of the stomach. And this man's wife was well acquainted with my mother, and a few days after the funeral, chanced to be talking her. She, the wife of the dead man, confided many things to my mother and told her the real character of her husband. Let's just call him FD. That he had been a brute, bad person, all bad, according to her story. And some of the things which were said concerning the dead man aroused within me a hatred of him. He was probably beating her ass. That's probably what she told him. He beat me. She was scared and couldn't leave. Kind of thing. I remember very clearly standing back and taking in the conversation between this woman and my mother and how my blood boiled with rage against this dead man. Now, this conversation took place around 7:30 p.m., and by 9 o'clock, I had forgotten the incident. That night, on going to sleep, I experienced a conscious projection. I had undergone the primary stages very perfectly, landed upon my feet just outside of the cord activity range, and I was free. I walked ahead a few steps, then stopped to look back at my physical body. And he says, in parentheses, one seldom fails to do this. Yeah, you can't leave your body without looking at it, because it's just the coolest thing to do. You want to look at it, My eyes encountered an ominous spectacle, a terrifying sight. There stood FD, glaring at me like a maniac, and I shall never forget the savage look upon his face as long as I live. I knew instinctively that he meant revenge, and was frankly terrified. Is he saying I was terrified, or he was? I knew instinctively that he meant revenge and was frankly terrified. I think he's saying he was scared. Like Vuldoon was scared. I did not know what to do, but before I had time to do anything, he leaped upon me, and we fought for a few minutes, he getting the better of me as he cursed and beat me with all his might. His strength seemed greatly superior to mine at the time, but in a moment I suddenly realized that my controlling power was pulling me in. When this power came to my rescue, FD seemed like a mere pygmy in strength. For I moved steadily towards my physical body, he clinging onto me as I did so. When I was inside cord activity range, even greater power seemed to overwhelm me. I was raised into the air horizontally in spite of all the fiend's efforts to hold me. Well, this is freaky. So he pulled to a position, I was raised into the air horizontally in spite of all of the fiend's efforts to hold me, pulled to a position directly over my physical body, and dropped. A drop that caused probably the most severe repercussion I've ever experienced as I became physically alive again. I was throughout as conscious as I am in this very moment, as you are, reading this account. Now, skeptics may say that this was a nightmare, but I know when I am conscious, and I know what is real when I am conscious. It was no nightmare. It was real. It was real as my tussle with a flesh and blood devil could be. Or with a damn. Was it Luther who claimed to have had a tussle with the devil? Who knows? Perhaps he did. Although I have never read them, I have been told that there are other accounts in spiritistic literature not unlike this one. Can you imagine that? What the hell? So he starts getting pissed at this dude. You know, thoughts become forms, right? And like, you need to read that book, Thought Forms by Annie Besant. I actually narrated that book on Audible. Anyways, can you imagine that? Like, so you're thinking he started obsessing probably about how mad he was at this guy because he was a prick while he was alive. Then he goes to sleep, and the dude picks up on his energy, was probably hanging out in the astral while they were talking crap about him. Now he's getting attacked by this dude in the astral, and his subconscious is trying to protect him, pulling him back to his body. And the closer he gets to his body, the more powerful he becomes, so he can fight back more. And this dude is like trying to still whoop up on him, trying to hold him in the astral and beat him. That's a bit terrifying. Not gonna lie there. You should take some astral fighting lessons or something. So now this brings us to the subject of obsession. There is a dispute among the spiritists themselves as to whether or not earthbound phantoms or phantoms in purgatory can exert evil influences upon mortal beings. The present writer is a staunch believer in spirit obsession. It is inconsistent indeed for spiritists and occultists to maintain that good spirits can influence earthly minds when those minds get into the right condition, but that evil spirits cannot do so when the mortal's mind gets into the wrong condition. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. You can't say that, we can influence the good, but there's no bad influence. It can't be just one without the other. So, modern science does not accept as true the doctrine of spirit obsession, claiming that all cases of so-called spirit influence are really only cases of diseased minds and bodies requiring for their cure proper medical attention. But experienced spiritualists, however, know that while many cases of apparent obsession may be accounted for in this manner, there are also cases of real obsession by less developed, disembodied spirits, and as great a psychologist as Professor W.M. James said shortly before his death, quote, "The refusal of modern enlightenment to treat obsession as a hypothesis to be spoken of as even possible, in spite of the massive human tradition based on concrete experience in its favor, has always seemed to me a curious example of the power of fashioning things scientific." That's a really complicated way and a dumb way. I don't care how smart you are. It's just dumb. You could have just said, you know what? a lot of times our experience negates scientific fact. And it's really curious to me why we go with the books instead of our experience, or science instead of what experience shows us. Well, sir, that's human nature. No matter what evidence shows us to the contrary, we hold on to our religions and our beliefs and all of our shit. That's just what we do. Science included. Despite how much experience shows us different. It is weird. I don't know why we do it. That's a whole other thing, though. Now, here's another quote, that the demon theory, not necessarily a devil theory, will have its innings again is to my mind absolutely certain. One has to be scientific indeed to be blind and ignorant enough not to suspect any such possibility, end quote. Professor J.H. Hyslop in his Life After Death book says, quote, I have asserted that the explanation of this case is obsession, spirit or demonic obsession, as it was called in the New Testament. As it was called in the New Testament, before accepting such a doctrine, I fought against it for 10 years, and after that, I was convinced that survival after death was proved. The case referred to is the following, thus summed up by Dr. Hyslop. So remember, Dr. Hyslop is a guy that doesn't believe in demonic possession, any of this stuff, or whatever. He's a scientist, a doctor. So here's his experience. Maybe we can do this before the top of the hour. Here's a case of disassociation caused by a parent's brutal act that results in a form of multiple personalities, which the physicians regard as incurable and certain to terminate in the insane asylum in death. It was variously diagnosed as paranoia and dementia. What is that? Praecox? But under the patience and care of a clergyman, it was cured, and the girl made a perfectly healthy person again, capable of carrying on a large poultry business and serving as a vice president of a poultry association in the country where she lived, presiding over its meetings with intelligence and coolness. So then she was cured. Experiments with a psychic appear to show that it was a case of spirit obsession, with the identity of the parties affecting her proved. Mediumship begins its development as a means of preventing the recurrence of the evil obsession. The mediumship proceeds along with a normal and healthy life. And speaking of the consequences of such a belief, this author further says that the chief interest in such cases is the revolutionary effect in the field of medicine. It is possible that thousands of cases diagnosed as paranoia would yield to this sort of investigation and treatment. It is high time for the medical world to wake up and learn something. In the case of 89, which I related earlier in this book under the heading, quote, duplicate sensibility and obsession, we have a most unusual example of the obsession of an earthly being by an astral phantom. And if the Bible were true, it appears that Christ himself was an advocate of the belief in evil spirit obsession. For in not a few cases, he demonstrated his ability to drive out the devils from afflicted persons. St. Paul, too, believed that evil spirits could influence earthly beings as well as good spirits. Some phantoms obsess intentionally, but others do, or do so unknowingly. And often the phantom is himself obsessed, as in the case of 89. The stress of earthly desire is so strong in the astral that the only wonder is that thousands are not obsessed by these earthbound entities who are trying to get back into the material bodies to appease their desires. And needless to say, the intelligences which obsess earthly persons are phantoms in purgatory. And then he goes on. I think there's some more cases of this that we can get into. See, I never thought that it was like demon possession or anything like that. I always thought, too, it was just like some kind of weird possession thing, myself. Anyways, it's the top of the hour. We got to pay the bills for the radio station. We got 4 minutes here. I'll open the phone lines up. If you guys got any, any experience with this or have experiences with this, you can call into at 501-777-5631. Please do so.
Say in your mind.
We're not going to... That's
Say
not
to
the commercial
yourself.
music. What's going on here? Someone's going to have to learn how to host this show, man. Whoever it is. I don't know. Be right back.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you're interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm. Or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
To some people, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much. But that's not necessarily true. By 6 months, they're combining vowels and consonants. By 9 months, they're trying out different kinds of sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on some meaning. Especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Early screening and intervention can make a lifetime of difference and unlock a world of possibilities. Take the first step at autismspeaks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
The following is made possible by Dad.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling all over it.
The dad joke. Corny, grown-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
Why do you have to be careful when it's raining cats and dogs? Because you might step in a poodle.
And kids that spend more time with their dads grow up to be smarter, more successful.
Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding.
And with any luck, funnier adults.
Why didn't the skeleton go to the dance? Because he didn't have any body to go with.
Dad jokes rule. So take a moment to make a moment and give your kid a laugh. It's as easy as going to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health.
Have you ever wondered, what do the stars say for me? Or, will the next month or the next year be more favorable? How about, are our two signs compatible? Each month, at the new moon, you can ask these questions live with me, your astrologer psychic, Mary DeCina, along with host of Lighting the Void, Joe Root. Join us at the new moon for Cosmic Conditions. We look forward to working with your energy.
Every new moon at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fringe FM.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Oh yeah, I gotta unmute. There's a little power nerd there for you. I got actually got some dedications. Leave your dedications live on the Fringe FM. Calling number is 501-777-5631 if you want to call in. Looks like I missed some calls already. I always miss calls. I have this thing, even with my freaking cell phone, like I never hear the damn thing ring. But let me know if you want to call in, or I can call you back if you got a story you want to share. Now, keep in mind, too, while we're talking about this obsession, evil spirits kind of thing, whatever it is, keep in mind that this is 1928. This isn't Robert Monroe. This isn't a scientist. This is Sylvan Vuldoon, who is, I guess you could say, he seems like somewhat of an occultist. So an occultist, think about it, somewhat of an occultist with somewhat of an upbringing around religion, who's been astral traveling like crazy back in the 20s. You have to kind of take that into consideration. Hopefully you understand. Hopefully you smell what I'm stepping in. Let's see. What do we got? Where the hell are we? So some very striking, this is what I think it is too, is obsession. Because I've had so many people report to me weird stuff that happens in the astral realm, and usually it has to do with some kind of weird obsession or somebody that's obsessed with them or something. And it never seems to be like a demon or anything like that. It's just some kind of weird obsession. And I also think that, in a way, like if you're worried about someone's obsessive energy, if you start to worry about it, it probably will affect you. If you can get to a place where you're not worried about it, I don't think it affects you. I think the mind is pretty powerful in this place, a lot more powerful than we think, you know. Let's see. Some very striking cases of obsession in which the obsessing entities gave remarkable evidence of their own independent existence are to be found in Mr. J. Godfrey Roberts' books, The Dangers of Spiritualism, Modern Spiritism, The Supreme Problem, as well as in Dr. Peebles' Spirit Obsession, The Demonism of the Ages. A unique discussion of the subject is to be found in Dr. C.H. Carson's pamphlet on obsession, and while some very striking cases presenting all the external evidences of the historic phenomena have come under the observation of Mr. Carrington, 30 Years Among the Dead is a book on obsession by Dr. Carl Wicklund. It is interesting to note that Dr. Wicklund has an institution in Los Angeles, California, in which scores of obsessed patients are cured every year by treating them along regular spiritualistic lines, while a number of our modern writers and investigators are coming to the conclusion that genuine spiritual obsession is indeed a fact. I think so too. I think obsession can be don't take this wrong, but I think obsession can be a good energy if it's used properly. But it can be like a double-edged sword too. It can be nasty, you know. The greatest objection which I have heard advanced against the practice of astral body projection is that while the phantom is exteriorized from the body, a foreign astral entity might be able to inhabit the physical mechanism and prevent the real owner or the projector from getting back into his own body again, kind of like a walk-in or whatever. Now, what the probability of this type of obsession is, I confess I cannot say. However, it is my belief that somewhere there is a flaw in this contention, which is so often advanced by spiritists, and that there's a reason why this type of obsession is not likely to occur. If an earthbound entity had only to get into the physical mechanism while the astral body was withdrawn, each night hundreds of people would become victims. For each night there are hundreds of people exteriorized, traveling in their dream bodies, whether they're aware of it or not. Now, surely we cannot say that earthbound entities would not take advantage of this fact and seize control of the vacated physical mechanism. Now, no doubt many of the so-called dangers of astral projection are greatly exaggerated. I think that too. I'm not saying there's no dangers, but I definitely think a lot of it gets exaggerated, you know. So, while psychologists ascribe all cases of dual or even multiple personalities to disassociation or splits within the subject's own mind, many prominent spiritualists contend that many such cases are merely instances of spirit obsession. Now, to my way of reasoning, the spiritualists have by far the best of the argument. They have a logical explanation as to where the foreign consciousness comes from and can show where that consciousness is developed. But the psychologists, it appears, cannot always give a satisfactory explanation as to how this secondary consciousness develops. And some of the explanations advanced by them are anything but plausible. It is to be remembered that even orthodox psychologists and the most scientific investigators have, at times, had doubts as to the sufficiency of the ordinary psychological explanations of these cases. In the writings of Watseka Wonder, or I guess it's Learn See Venom, Dr. Hodgson stated that, in his opinion, the case belonged to the spiritistic category. And Dr. William M. Dougal was similarly forced to the tentative conclusion that Sally and the Beachcomb case, or the disassociation of the personality, was also a spirit. We know, of course, that all so-called obsession is not necessarily spirit obsession, and that the subject's own mind can at times obsess him in itself. I mean, I would think that most of us that are at a certain age understand the power of obsession, what it does to us in the physical world, and also what it can do to us psychologically or spiritually. I hope everybody has at least had some form of experience with it, whether they've obsessed upon something or been an object of obsession, you know. All right. So, what does Vuldoon have to say about the Akashic records? There is a widespread belief that once a person is projected from his physical body into the plane of forces, or the astral plane, he is at once possessed of the faculty of seeing both past and future. In all my conscious projections, however, I have seen only the present, just as I see only the present, but remember the past as I write this account. It is claimed that somewhere in the plane of forces there is a record of everything which has ever been said or done, and that under certain conditions one can read this record. And although I have never seen them, the Akashic records as they are called, and although I've never seen the future either, while conscious, I have, while partially conscious in the astral body, lived through events which had not yet occurred in my physical life. I will tell of this presently, but first allow me to summarize what others have said of the Akashic records. The Akashic records are not contained within some great book, but are impressions of every word, scene, and action which has ever occurred in the universal ether or astral light. This should not be so great a marvel, however, for we have an example of it in our own memory. Stored away somewhere is the record of our past. Dissect the brain and you find no trace of what we call memory. Yet, every time you recall a past event, you have proof that somewhere this record lies hidden and invisible. Where, then, is the memory? Is the Akashic record so much more mysterious than your own memory? Astronomy teaches us that light travels at the rate of more than 160,000 miles a second. There are fixed stars so far distant from the Earth that light, which left them thousands of years ago, is only now reaching us. We could look at distant fixed stars, but we do not see as it is or where it appears to be, but we see as it was hundreds of years ago, and when these light rays left it. So of this subject, Mr. Carrington has written, quote, "It takes an appreciable time for light to travel these vast distances, even at the rate of 186,000 miles per second. That is about 7.5 times around the Earth in 1 second. According to such calculations, it would take about 8 minutes for light to reach us from the sun. Now, if you were looking at the sun, you would see it at the moment, apparently, but you do not see the sun as it is now, but as it was 8 minutes ago. And you do not see the sun as it is now until 8 minutes hence, so that if there were a horse galloping on the sun, so to speak, and you could see it, you would not see that horse galloping until 8 minutes after he finished the race. So theoretically, if the sun were moved further away and you could still see what was going on there, light, instead of taking 8 minutes to reach us, might take a year, and then you could see things as they were happening a year ago. Now, some of the stars are so far distant that it takes hundreds of thousands of years for the light to reach us, traveling at that rate again of 186,000 miles a second. They calculate distances astronomically by what they call light years, that is, the distance which light can travel in 1 year. And this is the unit of calculation. Some stars are 500,000 light years away, all of which leads up to this point. Supposing something were happening on Earth, and a being there in space were sufficiently far away, looking at our Earth to see what was happening here a year ago, that is, light leaving the surface of our globe and traveling outward into space, would reach that point in space for 1 year from now. So very well. Let's say you perform a certain action. A year hence, this theoretical onlooker would see that action. It is recorded there a year from now, or 100, or 100,000, or 1,000,000 years from now, whatever. It all depends upon the distance, how far away he was placed. So, if you could get far enough away in space, there would always be a time, theoretically, when you could see that action being recorded in the ether. So that every stone put into place on the Great Pyramid is now being put there at a certain distance in space. The creation of the world can now be seen in space at a certain distance. We still see the record of stars which went out of existence hundreds of years ago. The light vibrations set in motion long ago still exist after their source has disappeared. So, are the Akashic records more mysterious than that? The universal ether is said to have a true record of everything which has ever been, and the Hindus say that if one were developed properly, he could read these records. Swami Panchadasi, who is said to be a master of the art of astral projection, says this, quote, "By traveling to a point in time on the fourth dimension, you may begin at that point and see a moving picture of the history of any part of the earth from that time to the present, or you may reverse the sequence by traveling backwards. You may also travel in the astral and ordinary space dimensions and thus see what happened simultaneously all over the earth at any special time if you wish. As a matter of strict truth, however, I must inform you that the real records of the past exist on a much higher plane than the astral, and that which you have witnessed is but a reflection, practically perfect, however, of the original records. It requires a high degree of occult development in order to perceive even this reflection in the astral light. An ordinary clairvoyant, however, is often able to catch occasional glimpses of these astral pictures and may thus describe fairly well what's happening of the past. So much for the Akashic records, which this writer has never had the pleasure of observing. Pretty cool theory, I guess. 540 area code. You're on the air. Who are we speaking with? Sorry about the feedback.
Yeah, it's Joe. It's Mike in Virginia.
What's up, man?
I did an out of body a few nights ago when I was out in my front yard. That's the first time I've left the house.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's how it happened though. I was running around my house. The lights are on, and I recognized all the lights where they were, and I realized it was fully out of body. And I had this. Is jade a stone?
Yeah, I think so. Jade. Yeah, I think it's a stone.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm in the living room, and I have this jade stone, and it's got an elephant outlined on it. Right, I'm looking at it, and it's outlined on it. I'm looking, okay, that's kind of cool. And all of a sudden, I got this weird feeling about negative energy. So suddenly, I didn't walk through the wall, but I was, went from in the house outside. It was instant, and it was in the north part of the yard. And the yard's not big, but just for directional.
Yeah.
And I'm walking around, and I can see everything. I think the moon was out because everything was sort of illuminated. You could see stuff. I could see my trees and the house and my neighbor's house. You could see everything. So, but it was dark out. But it had the moon was partially out. So, I think that's what helped illuminate things.
Did you peel out, or did you just project out? Did you know what I mean?
I don't know. I was walking around.
So you don't remember actually getting there, is what I'm saying.
No, I went from inside the house and boom, I was outside.
So were you meditating or sleeping or what?
Huh? What now?
Were you meditating or sleeping? I'm trying to figure out how it started.
I fell asleep. I was watching a movie and I just dozed off.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. That happens.
Okay.
For sure.
And so I'm sitting there, and I was looking at this stone in my hand when I was in the house. I was, it's kind of like I could feel like something evil, like demonic. And so I'm outside, and I'm walking to my other neighbor's house. It was walking south, so I'm sitting there, and I'm walking around, and I was looking around. I was like, oh, it's really cool, but I heard this growling, and it was coming from me.
Holy
and I turned back to look at my neighbor's house. I'm seeing it, and I'm looking around. I don't see anything like that. And I look to my right, and the bank is about 5 feet above the road. And I'm looking, I see this white area, so I walked over to it, start walking over, and this raccoon comes running out. It's growling at me. I growled back at it, and it ran back the other way. So I realized, animals can see you when you're out of body.
That's crazy.
They can, see. Huh?
That's crazy, man. You thought the growling was coming from you at first, like it was coming out?
Yeah. Well, I was walking around. I was going, I was breathing like that. So what is going on?
What the hell?
And then the raccoon came out, and then he was running by. He looked up. He's growling at me, so I growled back at him. He ran the other way, ran back to where he came from. And I'm looking around, and I said, I turned and I said, "There's something very." I was thinking to myself, "There's something very negative out here. It's very, very demonic out here." And I'm looking around, I don't see it. Suddenly, I'm back in the house. I mean, it's just half a second. Poof, you're there. And I have this stone. I'm in the living room, and I have plastic totes with stuff in it stacked up on a table, for storage because I don't have that anybody to put it. So I'm standing right before where the phone is and everything. I'm looking around, I see everything. And I have this jade stone in my hand. I'm looking at the elephant, and I said, "How do you activate this thing?" Because this negative energy was coming in. There was no stopping it. And I said, "How do you activate this thing?" And I said, and I flipped it up, and you could see where the machine had cut the stone. There's little lines in it. It was cut. I said, "There's no inscription on the bottom of this thing to read it, to activate it. What's going on?" And suddenly it started. There was an inscription being carved in as I was looking at it, but it was backwards, so you had to hold it up to the mirror to read it. So I read it, and I'm holding my hand, and all of a sudden all these beams of light came up, and it went back over to where all this. It's just like a river of black was coming at you in the sky, and it went up and it dissipated everything. It just got rid of it. Now it's just like black clouds sitting there, But what it left was this, it looks like a moon, but it's just this illuminated light. It's round like the sun, but it's just illuminated. And if you look beyond it, it's illuminating the land all over the place out there.
Yeah, that's weird, man. Was that stone in your house before, or was it just in the astral?
No, I guess it was in the astral because I don't have a stone like that.
What the hell does that? What could that even mean?
I don't know. It was like illuminated, I guess, angelic light or light to be put out there, but it's like a permanent thing.
So it's a jade stone with an elephant, like it was in the shape of an elephant?
No, it was, you just take the stone and somebody sort of etched out an elephant on it, but it didn't have like legs and stuff. It had the legs on it, but it wasn't carved out to look like an elephant. It was just sort of drawn out on it. Like you draw it out on a piece of paper type of thing, but it wouldn't have the actual elephant.
An elephant's an Eastern symbol. It could be from one of 9 different countries over there probably, but you don't know anybody that's trying to send you energy or anything like that, right?
Not that kind of. Well, I went to. I have a spirit board. I use it sometimes, and I went to it and I said, because it was frightening when I was out of body. It was frightening. I was getting nervous. I was like, well, what do I do? What do I do? Because this stuff was coming, and it was demonic. You could just feel the negativity of it. And I went to the board, and it said it was coming for me. And I was like, why is it coming for me? I'm not doing anything in particular. And it said for future use. Okay. And that's all I got out of it. But the elephant is like, to me, would be, extremely smart. They remember heritage. They remember, where like in Africa, they go up this hill, someplace where they all go die. It's like ingrained in their DNA, and they'll go back to that. So I think the elephants are I think they remember past lives or stuff like that. I don't know. But maybe that's a representation of it. But it was just a jade stone, and it was kind of etched out on it like that. And that's about it, really.
So have you gotten out of your yard before?
No, this is the first time. I've been in the house.
Yeah.
But I started thinking, was this necessary to be out in the yard, or was it brought me out in the yard? It just happened that way, or was it necessary for that to happen for me to see what was going on? I don't know, but it makes me want to work on it more now.
Man, you always have some crazy stuff that happens to you, but it sounds so real though. Like, because I know what Vuldoon's talking about. Like, I don't have that experience that other people have where they go to 9 different planes or whatever. I'm always just around pretty locally when I get out of body, that. But if that thing showed up to me and you don't know why, it had to come from another person's, I don't want to say maybe not a person, but to me it would. That's what I would think. Somebody trying to send me something, I don't know. You don't have
if somebody was sending me something, it was demonic. It was coming from another realm or dimension. Because it was, I can still look out over the land, and it was just, coming in. It was just like a storm coming, a bad storm.
Yes. So Make America Gnostic again says jade is holy in Asia, into the Maya and the Yucatan. So I can't think of maybe but a couple of bad thing. I'd have to look it up. I know one of them's probably Laotian, actually. A bad things that an elephant could be, So I don't know, man. What are your feelings about it? You just think it's demonic? Is that what you're feeling?
Yeah, it was something really, really bad. I got the worst feeling ever. I don't usually get too upset over stuff. Sometimes you can feel something negative in the house and you just get rid of it. Kind of floating around or this type of thing. I've had something come in and said it was Satan on the board, and I actually was in my bedroom. And if you're facing north, it would be off in the right-hand corner, last part of it, in the right-hand corner of the bedroom, and that's the end of the house on the north side. And there was something there. Because I have a few cats. The cats wouldn't go in the bedroom at all. They wouldn't spend any time there, and I had the worst time trying to sleep in there. So I just vacated the bedroom, and I literally took everything out of the house and just basic stuff, and I stored it down and I have a shed. I just put everything down there for like 4 months.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question.
What?
So Dragon Rose says people wear jade elephant charms as a talisman to attract good fortune, protect against negative energies, and promote a sense of stability. There's nobody in your life that you would think that might be trying to protect themselves from you, would they?
No, not that I know of. I mean, I don't know that many people.
Yeah.
So I don't know. They're trying to protect them from me? Like I'm doing something wrong?
Yeah, like maybe they think you're... You know, sometimes, man, if you talk to people, they'll get a creep. They'll think that a lot of times it's just them, but they might think you're a creepy guy or something. And then they go to try to like protect themselves from you. And then that crap ends up as a thought form somewhere in the astral. And the truth of it could be you mean anybody any harm. You know, you might have just talked to somebody or something, you know.
No, I don't know anybody like that. Because this was coming down from the north, head to south. And towards me, and the jade in like an astral form or my out of body form, I was holding it, and it protected me. It dissipated the negative energy coming towards me. So I don't know if anybody would have ill will for me.
Yeah,
maybe that would be a massive amount of ill will.
Maybe someone was trying to protect you then, or something, or maybe it's you. Like, who knows, man? You'd have to investigate that if you can.
What do you mean? Maybe it's me.
Well, it could be you in a higher form trying to protect you.
Oh, okay. Huh.
You know,
I never thought about that.
Yeah, we tend to think a lot of times that we're here, you know, and this is exactly who we are. But I get a sense that there's a higher version of us, like somewhere watching over us. I don't know where or what to even call it, but I get that feeling sometimes too, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt like there was just me and I had stone and that was it. You know, I didn't feel any real help around anything like that or a warmth of, you know, highness out of it. It was just that was it. And this is what you do. You activate it. It does it. So I don't know if it was kind of a lesson for being here. You know, something's going to happen here and I need to know these things. You know, I don't know. But it just, I mean, it was really cool because I was out in the front yard. I could see, you know, the shadows of everything. The tree where I partially cut it down, had another tree behind that growing. I could see the, you know, pile of brush over here. I could see everything. I thought it was pretty cool, though.
That is pretty cool. That's a pretty cool experience. I never get stuff like that when I get out of body. I just wander around the yard in the neighborhood for the most part, man. Like, I'm still waiting on something weird to happen, I guess, you know. So
I don't know that it would. I mean, like that raccoon saw me. He definitely saw me. He looked up at me and he ran off. So animals can see you.
Yeah, raccoon's nocturnal too. So yeah, that's cool. That's a nocturnal animal, so that's pretty cool. Maybe they can all see astral beings.
Yeah. You know? And because I mean, my cat's actually looking at the ceiling somewhere, and they're I don't see anything up there, but they're like, you know, watching whatever's going across the ceiling. I don't see it. But they're two of them sitting there watching it. You know, something's moving around the top of the ceiling, and they're going, and I'm looking where they're looking. I don't see anything, but they do. So, you know, maybe that was somebody else doing an out of body, and they're, you know, running around top of my house or something.
It could be. Keep doing it, man. Let us know though, because I'm interested. That's weird, you know.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering if it was a case of, because I want to try it again. I'm going to try to get back to that. But was it a case of it was necessary to do that? It was, you know, you had to go out and do that in order to, you know, take care of whatever you needed to take care of.
Maybe. I don't know. That's really cool, though. That's actually a pretty cool experience. Thanks for sharing that, man.
Okay, yeah, anytime.
Yeah, you have a good night, brother.
All right, thanks a lot, Joe.
Bye. MJ, everybody. That guy, he always has some cool experiences. Some people are just tapped in like that, man. When you're tapped in, you're tapped in. And in my opinion, when you start to get out of body, like when it starts happening, it tends to come in, for me, it tends to come in like 3s or 4s. I mean, I wish I could just do it every day, but like it takes me a minute to get there, and then it comes in like 3s or 4s. And the only weird thing that I've seen has been those like Rorschach looking blurry things, you know. Now I can't say that before we get back into Vuldoon, I can't say that I haven't unconsciously projected into other places. I've had people tell me that I've showed up in their dreams in their yard and stuff like that. And I don't, one person that told me that, I could say that maybe I did because I knew them. But like, if I don't know you, I don't even know why I'm talking about this, but like, I don't know why I would be there to begin with, or why anybody would be anywhere to begin with, An elephant, a jaded elephant. Thanks, Dragon Rose, for looking that up or sharing that. I didn't know what it was. If animals were all able to see us out of body, we'd see them running into cars and weird stuff a lot more frequently. Yeah. Listen, I had a Burmese snowshoe cat that I rescued from the car lot back when I used to sell cars. When I was a sleazy car salesman. God, I hated that job, man. This cat we sold Jeep Wranglers, and this cat would jump down and we'd feed it cat food out there on the lot, and then it jumped back up, and finally I decided to, rescue it. So me and Roy, another guy that was out there, rescued it, and he nurtured the little kitten until it was big, and then it was scared. This cat was scared of everything. So finally I took it home. I couldn't take care of it. I didn't even know what they were called, but it was like a Siamese looking cat with blue eyes and white feet, right? Looked it up later. It's called a Burmese snowshoe. But anyways, this cat was freaky. It seemed to see everything. And at one time I was on the couch laying down doing the OBE stuff, and I was in it, man. Like, this is when I was in it. I was vibrating. I was getting out of body on the reg. And this time I raised up, just like I did before. Raised up out of my body. Did the whole hemisync thing. I don't remember if it was Bielman or hemisync. I forget what I was listening to. But I was definitely listening to something. Peeled out. And the cat was right at the edge of the couch, just looking at me. And I reached down to pet her. I was like, "Hey, Allie, what are you doing, baby?" And she freaked out. She looked at me and just was, and I mean, almost as if she pushed me back in my body. Like she wanted to kill me. It was weird. I think some animals can. I don't know about all animals, though. Probably right about that, Corey. All right, so 501-777-5631. So that's what Vuldoon thinks about the Akashic records. He's got a good point. It doesn't have to be majestic. I think we make things like super mystical and majestic sometimes only because we don't really understand how they work. Like this whole thing, spiritualism, the way I look at it, the spirit world, spiritualism, the astral, the Akashic records, it could just be something we just don't understand yet. And once later on, when we've, I guess, developed ourselves or whatever, and we come to understand it, maybe we'll, I don't know, we won't look at it as like a majestic or magical type thing anymore, So he goes on to say, we've already learned how one can live over events which have happened in the past in the astral body during a projecting dream. Frequently, the future contemplating mind will cause the projected dreamer to live through events which have not yet happened in the material world. That's happened to me before. That's a trippy thing. Of course, one can have a future contemplating dream in which the dream body does not act out the apparent action, but it frequently happens, especially to those inclined towards astral projection, that a future contemplating dream takes place in which the astral body participates. I've had many experiences, awakening from a dream and finding myself acting it out in the astral body. Here's an example which took place several years ago. I dreamed that I came out of the front door of my home and started to walk up the street on my way to school. To get to the schoolhouse, I could go in either one of the ways, one a direct route leading to the residential district, the other leading to the business district. On returning to school after my noonday meal, I almost invariably went through the residential district, the shorter and more direct route. But anyways, in the dream, as I walked along the street, I heard someone calling me, and turning around, saw one of my friends who lived several blocks beyond my home, running to catch up with me. He was in my class at school, and as we walked along, we discussed the problems of the afternoon session. Finally, we came to the place where the trail branched, one running through the business section, the other through the residential district. I started to walk along the ladder route and expected my friend to go that way too, but he said, "Come on, let's go through town. We've plenty of time." So we went by the way of the path which led through the business section. I stopped to look at one of the stone windows and seeing a pair of socks there which struck my fancy. I entered and purchased them. Now this is all a dream, remember. Then we walked on towards the school building. As we advanced through the park, I saw a boy whom I recognized at once coming toward us. As we met, he came very close to me and spat upon one of my shoes. Then with a gesture said, "Tee-hee," and ran. This boy was a mischief in reality, too. It was only a short distance from this point to the school building, and as we continued moving towards it, I became more and more aware, it seemed, and realized, even before full consciousness came, that I was actually walking through this park. I then awoke in the astral realm and found the action true, but the persons melted out of the scene, and I was there alone in my astral body. Holy shit, that's weird. I can see that happening too, though. That's weird. It was several weeks after this that the occurrence actually took place. Everything occurred in the same order as it happened in the dream. I left home on my way to school. My friend hailed me. We walked to the fork in the trail, where he persuaded me to go through town. I saw the socks in the store window and purchased them. We went through the park and met the boy, the same boy I'd seen in the dream. And as he was approaching, I said to my friend, "This kid's going to spit on my shoe." And he said, he did, saying "tee-hee," and ran off. And from this, you can see that the astral body acted out an event which did not occur in the physical world until several weeks later. To give one more example, dude, what? It's weird enough that, wow, man. Imagine that, like, so first, but the whole seeing into the future thing is pretty cool, you know, but imagine that you could see into, like, you're in a dream, and once you realize, you become lucid. The lucid dream fades away, and then now you're in your etheric body, your astral body. So let's say you dream you're walking through a cemetery or whatever, and you're with your friends and there's people around or whatever. Or I'll just make up an even cooler, you know. Let's say that you have some kind of weird dream that you stumbled upon some ritual in a cemetery. When you wake up from the dream, you can actually, your astral body could be at the cemetery that you know of, and the dream will fade away. Now, I've had this happen getting out of body where a dream started to fade in. So I remember peeling myself out. I was on the couch. I peeled myself out. I got up, started walking around. It felt really heavy, like I was being pulled back to my body, like it was super heavy. So I thought, man, this isn't going to last long. And then it looked as almost if a dream was fading in to the right, like a dream was fading in or coming into the scene. So I believe that. So in this case, a dream faded out. But not only did a dream fade out and his astral etheric double was at that cemetery, which has got to be not the cemetery, but where he was walking, which has got to be a creepy feeling. Everything that happened in the dream happened in real life. That's weird. There's got to be some kind of something to explain that. All right, so here's another example from this. So you can see that the astral body acted out an event which did not occur in the physical world until several weeks later. Let's give one more example. Dude, I keep hearing noises at my door. I got to check it out. It's starting to freak me out. I'm just going to check on it. Hold on. It's live. I apologize, guys. Give me a second. One second. Be right back. No, it's not. It was it wasn't my door. It was, I think so. It's a critter walking on the roof or something. Who the hell knows? I could hear it walking around. It sounded like it was rattling the door. I think just telling that story creeped me out or something. And maybe I was like, you know, maybe I hear animals all the time. It usually doesn't bother me, but there's something about this night that it's bothering me. Whoa, Corey. I hope everything's cool, brother. Maybe the chicken. No, the rooster got that. The chickens don't come out at night. The rooster would kick their ass if they did. He won't let them do it. Okay. Let's get into it. Let's try to. Oh, damn it. I hit a wrong button. All right. So in the spring of 1927, I awakened one night in the Astral and found myself in a strange place, an unusually attractive park. I looked about me, observed its characteristics, and noted many specific features as well as its general aspect. I noted particularly a high, rocky wall and two small bridges crossing a stream. I had no memory of ever having visited this place, nor did I know where the place was, and neither could I remember the trip back to my physical body. It was 2 months later when, on a trip with a friend, I accidentally entered a park in a town about 50 miles from my home and discovered that it was the same place. I've done that before. I could quote many experiences similar to this one, but they would be irrelevant. In fact, scarcely a week goes by without some future contemplating dream. Contemplating dream. Where did I leave off? Man, I hit a wrong button. And occasionally I become conscious in the dream, only to find that I'm acting out the contemplated action in my dream body. The last one that I had like this was when I had a dream of going over to like this green bridge, and I'd never seen it before. It was just this really crazy looking bridge that was green all across it with a river going under it. It's not like the one at the Arkansas River here. So I thought, well, I don't know. It's just a dream. A few months later, I ended up going to Portland, Oregon and seeing this bridge. I've never seen Portland, pictures of it, the bridges, anything like that. And I crossed this bridge in an Uber, and it was the exact same damn bridge, man. It had that typo negative, creepy green light feel to it, you know. But it's weird. Yeah, that's happened to me a lot, actually. I just can't recount all of it, So I've observed that when one does have a future contemplating projection dream, it nearly always begins with some routine action. That is, a dream begins with some routine action and runs off into another channel. Or the dreamer enacts something which he is in the habit of doing every day, and then certain novel aspects of the action, which have not yet happened, are dreamed about. For example, in the experience I've just related, I dreamed firstly of my daily routine going to school, and then certain incidents which had not yet occurred were dreamed and acted out. Usually after I've experienced such a dream, it materializes, and he puts that in quotes, during the day following the dream. But again, as in the cases just given, the action did not happen in reality until several weeks after the astral body had enacted it. Again, my astral body may have enacted many, many future contemplating dreams of which I know nothing, for one does not always remember a dream, and a projector does not always awaken in a dream. It is to be regretted that we cannot find some method of dreaming future events at will, and sometimes, in a projection dream, the subject may be in some strange place and be almost conscious and see what is taking place there. But on awakening in his physical body, he does not know for certain that the events really did take place, but attributes them, if he recalls them at all, to a dream or a nocturnal fantasy. He may never hear that the events really did take place and does not know that the dream was more than mere fantasy. Does that make sense what he's saying? So a lot of times we'll go places in our sleep and we'll think we're dreaming because we've never seen it. We don't know what it is, and it's a little fuzzy when we come back to anyways. So we don't know. It just seemed like some weird dream. But in fact, we actually did visit someplace, you know. He may never hear the events really did take place and does not know that the dream was more than a fantasy. See, in this connection, the remarkable book by W.J. Doon, An Experiment with Time, in which he not only narrates a number of cases of this character, but tells how he succeeded in obtaining prophetic dreams at will, and tells his reader how they may obtain them too. Many clairvoyant dreams are mistaken for astral projections. One must not be deceived into the belief that the dream body acts out every dream, because it doesn't. And many believe that during every dream, the astral body projects and enacts the dream. The astral body does not even respond to some dreams, but lies at rest without action. One may dream while the astral body is in coincidence with the physical body, and there will be no action on the part of the astral body. One may dream while the astral body is in coincidence with the physical, with resultant action of the body, or sleepwalking, in other words. So on the other hand, one may also dream while the phantom lies motionless in the zone of quietude, or he may dream and act out the dream in the astral body. And again, one may dream and the astral body will project and enact the dream in its true location. And one may dream the same dream and the astral body will enact the dream close to the physical body, the mind creating the environment or the location exactly as it appears in reality in the distance. See all these different variables? One may dream of events which are happening at some distant place without ever being projected there astrally, just as a clairvoyant may see things happen at a distant place without actually going there. Undoubtedly, there are many accounts on record which are said to be examples of astral projection which are not astral projections at all. The following is an interesting experience of this type and is recorded by the SPR. It is related by the correspondent of the society. I don't know what the SPR is. One morning on December 18th, he had the following dream, or he would prefer to call it revelation. He found himself suddenly at the gate of Major NM's Avenue many miles from his home. Close to him was a group of persons, one of whom was a woman with a basket on her arm. The rest, men, 4 of whom were tenants of his own, while the others were unknown to him. Some of the strangers seemed to be assaulting H.W., and one of his tenants, and he interfered. I struck violently at the man on my left, and then with greater violence at the man's face on my right, finding to my surprise that I had not knocked down either. I struck again and again with all the violence of a man frenzied at the sight of my poor friend's murder. And to my great amazement, I saw my arms, although visible to my eye, were without substance, and the bodies of the men I struck at and my own came close together after each blow through the shadowy arms I struck with. My blows were delivered with more violence than I had ever think I exerted, but I became painfully convinced of my incompetency. I have no consciousness of what happened after this feeling of unsubstantiality came upon me. Next morning, I experienced the incident as narrated in third person. Stiffness and soreness of violent bodily exercise was informed by his wife that, in the course of the night, he had much alarmed her by striking out again and again with his arms in a terrific manner, as if fighting for his life. He, in turn, informed her of his dream and begged her to remember the names of those actors in it who were known to him. On the morning of the following day, Wednesday, I received a letter from his agent, who resided in the town close to the scene of the dream, informing him that his tenant had been found on Tuesday morning at Major NM's gate, speechless and apparently dying from a fracture of the skull, and that there was no trace of the murderers. That night, A started for the town and arrived there on Thursday morning. On his way to a meeting of magistrates, he met the senior magistrate of the part of the country and requested him to give orders for the arrest of the 3 men who, whom besides HW he had recognized in his dream, and to have them examined separately. And this was at once done. Really? Because they sure as hell wouldn't have done that nowadays. They'd have thought you were crazy. The three men gave identical accounts of the occurrence, and all named the woman who was with them. She was then arrested and gave precisely similar testimony. They said that between 11 and 12 on the Monday night, they had been walking homewards together along the road when they were overtaken by three strangers, two of whom savagely assaulted HW. While the other prevented his friends from interfering, HW did not die, but was never the same man afterwards. He subsequently immigrated. Although the foregoing account might be considered a good example of astral projection, it is anything but astral projection. In fact, the subject's astral body was not even out of coincidence with his physical body. For the next morning, he was suffering from the soreness and stiffness of a violent bodily exercise, and was informed by his wife that in the course of the night he had struck out again and again with his arms in a terrific manner, as if fighting for his life. This is a case of physical somnambulism, in which the subject merely dreamed of what was actually taking place at a distance. The astral body could not be projected to some distant point outside the physical body, and the later still be active. So I say again, do not be deluded into the belief that the dream body enacts all dreams outside the physical body, or that one cannot see the same events without astrally projecting, which he could see if he actually projected. There are only two ways in which one can know that he is actually projected in his dream. Either some clairvoyant would have to see the astral body of the dreamer, or the projected dreamer would have to become fully conscious at that place. Dreams in which the subject believes he is at a distant place should never be put on record as astral projected dreams, merely because they seem very real. In many cases of physical somnambulism, the subject has been able to describe distant scenes and tell precisely what is occurring there. Physical somnambulism and astral projection cannot occur simultaneously in the same subject. Akin to distant point vision is what might be called immediate environment vision, in which the dreamer sees occurrences which are actually happening in his immediate environment, and even in the room where he sleeps. And such dreams usually occur in the daytime during a midday nap, not infrequently just as an instant before the dreamer awakens. For example, one may dream that a certain person is at the door and will awaken an instant later and find that person in question really is at the door. So the next part is dream consciousness is not the real consciousness. So I guess what he's saying there is, it seems like overly complicated, but it does give us a bit of perspective, right? Again, we have the physical body, the astral or etheric double or phantom, whatever you want to call it, and then the dream body. Sometimes you can dream, he's saying sometimes you can dream things that have really happened, and your dream may be extremely vivid, but your astral body didn't go anywhere. Sometimes it does. Sometimes your astral body will go to whatever the dream is acting out. And like he did, he'll wake up from the dream and find that he's astrally there. So I'm not trying to make this into levels and be so precise that we have a formula in our head, but it is cool to know how consciousness works on this many levels, right? So we have the physical consciousness, which we have right now. Whatever we're focusing on, we're focused on it. There's a subconscious thing going on, and we can feel all our senses. When we go to sleep, we still have the mind, but we have like this weird etheric double thing that we can be astral body, I guess if you want to call it that we can either be in or out of. So don't, I guess, and this is where I'll agree with Sylvan Vuldoon, is don't limit your consciousness to certain formulas, because there's so many variables that can happen. Like if we really want to try to explore this realm, we should be getting out of body like every day, maybe twice a day, and we still probably wouldn't know everything about it. It's that elusive, but it's still pretty cool. All right, that's it. Right? think we're done for the week. So I'm going to try to finish up what I had for the tarot thing and the members by the end of the week. Get some links up in the descriptions for the videos that we did. And if you guys got any questions, I'll be in the Discord. I don't just disappear, so to speak, right? Like, just because I'm not on YouTube, I'll be frequent in the Discord and the, sometimes I'll read what you guys write without replying back, but that's what the Discord's for. So I'll either be in the Discord or the Telegram and, try to get out some more extra content this weekend. Make sure you check out the Fringe FM. Thanks, Dan and Jesse, for leaving dedications on the Fringe FM. That's cool. If you want a track that or it doesn't even have to be music. If there's something that you want to hear on the live stream, whether it's music, talk, anything, put that in the dedications thing and we'll put it up there. Make sure to vote on your favorite stuff on the radio station too. And love you. Night, night. Sweet dreams. Keep us posted.
Just text me, don't call.